Imagine watching every doubter's tweet age like spoiled milk the way that Bitcoin haters did back when it was at 3 grand. Now picture the exact same movie trailer playing, but the lead role is suddenly XRP. Back in December of 2018, I was standing in a crowded holiday market, sipping lukewarm cocoa, staring at my phone and suddenly wondering if crypto was the dumbest decision of my life. Now crypto, or Bitcoin specifically, had just crashed to the $3,000 zone and headlines were howling crypto is dead, and my cousin just kept texting skull and crossbone emojis. But a stranger bumped my shoulder, glanced at my screen and said, "If you believe in it, you should double down when it's disgusting." Now that jolted me, so I scraped together the last of my spare cash, bought an extra chunk of BTC at 3,000 flat, and then spent the next year fielding jokes about imaginary internet money and at least at every single family dinner. Now you can fast forward to now, Bitcoin flirts with $109,000 or $112,000, and those same relatives, they treat me like the designated wizard at the group chat. Now that memory crashed back in my head this morning when I read game developer turned XRP envisionalist, that's Chad's post. Now Chad reminded everyone that he scooped his Bitcoin at $3,000, rode it to a 37-fold return, and almost missed it because the loudest voices said, "Nah, scam, stay away." And his punchline is that ignoring XRP today might be the same blunder. Now I know, your fist is probably clenched right now, hearing just that. XRP has been the kind of butt of late-night crypto comedy sketches for years. Lawsuit baggage, stagnant price, Twitter wars, you can pick your poison, right? But every monster rally starts as an awkward joke. And I just simply can't shake the déjà vu. So here's the itch that just won't quit. When Bitcoin was scraping along at $3,000, the narrative was terminal, right? Mining death spirals, government bans, tulip bubble reruns. You remember? Right? Well, now Bitcoin's at all-time highs stands at a mind-melting, at least at point of recording, $112,000 and potentially going to break it any day now. And even after a bit of a dip, it's still kind of lounging around at these $109,000, $110,000 levels, like the sunburnt millionaire on a yacht. Now that's kind of a 3,633% move in under 7 years. Meanwhile, XRP, born 3 years after Bitcoin, is sitting at around that kind of $2 and some change, up roughly 11 times from its 2019 price, but nowhere near its, at least the face-melting returns of its, bigger brother and what Bitcoin has posted. Now on paper, that looks flat. In poker terms, though, it's kind of a pot that no one wants to fold on because the turn card could be fireworks. Now, let's go ahead and park all of that nostalgia kind of bus somewhere and talk about the raw pain points. Right? The obvious elephant, which is the SEC lawsuit that kind of chained XRP to an ankle weight for almost 4 years. Imagine sprinting a marathon with a tractor tire strapped to your waist, right? Every exchange kind of delisting or every regulatory headline, it kind of shaved just a little bit more hope off of the chart. And if you kind of bought XRP at its 2018 peak, you've waited nearly 8 years for that red line to revisit the neighborhood. Now, that can twist your stomach into origami, but value investing, it feels like kind of planting an orchard, right? You're not buying a smoothie, you're kind of like planting the fruit, and the fruit in fact will show up years after everyone's bored and actually gone home. And boredom, bizarrely, is kind of where riches like to hide, right? Markets historian, they kind of love this, right? Maximum opportunity sits in maximum apathy, right? That's kind of when parties empty out and you can actually hear the music, right? At least I should say, compare that to kind of Bitcoin's early graveyard vibes in 2018. And back then I saw more tumbleweed than tweets on crypto Twitter. Now by 2020 though, the same people who declared BTC a rotten corpse, they were actually live streaming their Lambos. Now, I can hear you asking, but doesn't XRP's underperformance prove that it's different? Sure, different timeline, different catalyst, different use case. Now, Bitcoin was born as digital gold. Well, actually, it wasn't born as digital gold. It was actually born for payments, but became digital gold. XRP, well, of course, actually aims to grease the gears of global payments and do what Bitcoin just simply couldn't. Less sexy headlines, of course, but arguably a much bigger sandbox. And that's exactly why guys like, Chad, they keep pouring and pounding the table, right? And pouring gasoline all over it. Utility is, of course, the slow cooker, right? Speculation is just a simple microwave. So when the slow cooker finally lifts its lid, that smell is going to hit every kitchen on Wall Street, but all at once. Now, speaking of kitchens, my own research lab is our free educational Discord server. The link is in the description. You can jump in, you can swap charts, share memes, ask weird questions that you can't ask your financial advisor because, let's be honest, most advisors still think MetaMask is a Fortnite skin. Now, the Discord, of course, costs you absolutely nothing except a healthy curiosity. And when the kind of crowdsourced brain lights up, the insights, they get spicy very fast. Now, a stat that kind of keeps me up at night is that nearly 90% of retail investors buy the top 10 days of a bull run, and then they go ahead and sell the bottom 10 days of a bear market. The translation is that most people donate money to the very patient people, right? After all, we are talking about sum zero. You buy a coin from someone who believes that it's going down, and you sell a coin to someone who believes it's going up. Money isn't made, it is only ever transferred between people. That's why they say wealth transfer. Anyway, early Bitcoin holders, they also proved all of this, right? Folks who grabbed BTC under 10 cents are dumping, El Grenade bags north of 100 grand. Now that wealth transfer feels biblical, right? Pro XRP voices like Coach JV claim a very similar tsunami forming, right? The escrow plans and on-demand liquidity adoption will flip the switch, apparently, according to some. Now you've got crypto educator, Edrino Farina, we speak about him all the time, even put a timestamp on the FOMO ignition. Wait until Ripple unveils a new escrow plan. Now, is that tomorrow? Is that next quarter? He's not spilling the beans. But the fuse is supposedly sparking. And yeah, I know, you could roll your eyes. Twitter is a Vegas strip of opium dealers handing out free drinks, right? But sometimes the bartender, sometimes is right. And remember when MicroStrategy's Michael Saylor suddenly became Bitcoin's biggest whale at $10,000 BTC, and the timeline kind of roasted him. Well, at least at the time they roasted him. 2 years later, he actually looked like the Nostradamus in a blue blazer. Skepticism is healthy, but it can sometimes also be very costly. And there's another angle that no one loves to kind of discuss, and that's risk distribution. Now, Bitcoin's distribution map is narrowing. Big whales hoard a huge chunk, which means new buyers may be climbing on a ladder held by giants. Now, XRP's ownership, though, on the other hand, is actually rather fragmented. Coach JV loves to kind of remind everyone who will listen that only about 4% of wallets hold more than 10,000 XRP. Now, he calls it the rare club, and history says rare clubs sometimes graduate to yacht clubs when supply shocks coincide with demand spikes. Now, if that $10,000 bag, they ever behaved like a early kind of Bitcoin's $10, well, the math turns eyebrows into parachutes. Now, before we kind of spin off too far into all of the moon math, let's kind of zoom out and talk about mindset. Now, the best trades happen when I treated money like seeds, not like chips on a roulette table. I watered them with reading, I weeded them with skepticism, and ignored all the heckling crows overhead. Right, the same process kind of applies here, right? Whether you're nibbling XRP or binge buying dog coins, right? Keep receipts on all of your theses, right? And that's if the facts change, you need to adapt. And if they don't, well, stop refreshing the chart every 10 minutes and just go for a walk and touch some grass. And by the way, when I do decide to pull the trigger, I keep it quite simple. I place most of my orders on Kraken Pro because their fees behave, their interface doesn't crash during volatility spikes, and Crucially, the link below is an affiliate link that directly supports the channel content here. So if you end up using it, fist bump to you guys, so thanks in advance. And if not, there's no hard feelings whatsoever. At least, compare spreads before you trade anywhere else. Okay, so let's kind of get into the next part of today's video. This is the point where we go into the halfway disclosure time, because trust kind of beats the hype every single day of the week. And this one, it might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in today's video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. Your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Okay, so that's the caveat kind of stamped there. Let's kind of keep on digging. Picture value as kind of a beachside treasure chest then, right? Bitcoin's already had a massive red X literally spray painted on it. Every kind of pirate and pension fund is on that island right now. XRP might still be buried under some damp sand, waiting for one big wave to kind of carve away the cover. Now, the legal fog lifted last year when the SEC's case finally fizzled, but price didn't really spike the way that TikTok prophecies and I guess gurus predicted. And that's kind of where the psychology twist really sits. When the fireworks didn't go off exactly on cue, the short-term speculators, they kind of bailed, assuming that the fuse was just fake, right? Meanwhile, of course, fundamentals, they just keep hammering nails behind the scene. RippleNet's corridors expanding, central bank pilots sniffing around, remittance giants testing micropayments. Those headlines, they don't trend unless someone screams 1000x right next to them. Yet they might actually end up mattering more than any meme. So I keep a yellow sticky note on my monitor that reads, narratives lag development. So think about smartphones. Developers were coding app stores while the rest of us were still kind of bragging about T9 texting speeds. Now, by the time that the public attention actually caught up, Apple stock had already run an absolute marathon. Crypto is no different here. While Twitter argues over decimal points, dev teams, they push updates that will quietly reprice everything once adoption crosses a hidden threshold. Now, you won't know the day until you check the chart and whisper, oh. Now, remember how long Amazon traded sideways in the early 2000s? Well, investors joked that it was a perpetual motion machine for draining wallets. Then cloud computing became the industrial kind of backbone of modern business, and boom. Amazon's sideways stretch became the launchpad on every price chart lecture slide. XRP's 8-year consolidation looks equally dull until one data switch recontextualizes it. So could be escrow restructuring, could be a mega partnership, could be a regulatory green light. No one rings a bell. Okay, let me give you a story. Last spring, I should say, my buddy Dave kind of rang me at 2 a.m, breathless. Now, he'd just kind of sold 100,000 XRP for a tiny profit because it was just doing nothing. It never was moving, right? And by July, the SEC's partial victory hit and price doubled in 24 hours. Dave spent the summer wearing invisible man sunglasses inside cafes, hiding from himself. The lesson is simple. Exits hurts more than entries when timing is fear-driven. Okay, let's take a stats break here. Right, Bitcoin's historical max drawdown is around 93%. XRP has kissed 96% during its darkest chapter. Yet survivors of both drops kind of clock life-changing multiples. Now, the difference is most people bail before the big number actually prints. So if you can't stomach a 90% drop, then you may never actually witness a 30x rise. That's not bravado, it's just kind of the way that it is. Edrino Farina's escrow countdown also intrigues me. Ripple holds roughly half of XRP's supply in time-locked escrow that releases monthly. If Ripple unveils a new utility-focused plan, say locking tokens into cross-border partnerships for maybe even burning unused portions, that supply-demand seesaw could tilt violently. Now, markets react violently when predictable supply schedules suddenly change. Remember Ethereum's EIP-1559 burn? Well, those tokenomics, kind of at least the tokenomic shift, they turned ETH into an ultrasound money meme and coincided, I should say, with kind of price fireworks. Now, will XRP replicate Bitcoin's 3,600% sprint? Unlikely in identical magnitude. Law of large numbers tightens odds after all. But even a fraction kind of paints, persuasive math. A 10x from here kind of puts XRP at around, well, just short of $30. And a level where many an early holder memes dreams kind of become mortgages paid, right? A 20x retirement phone calls might actually happen. Could it fall instead? Absolutely yes, right? And that's kind of where and why risk management isn't a side salad. It's actually the plate itself. So a quick mental model then. Allocate only what you can watch evaporate without compromising your day-to-day life, and specifically the rent money. Then set mental checkpoints, not price targets, right? But milestone events instead. Now for me, it's kind of like dev adoption metrics, lawsuit aftershocks, and on-chain liquidity volumes, right? If those climb while price stalls, then I'll add to the position. If they stall while price spikes, then I'm going to be shaving profits. It's kind of like surfing. Read the swell, not the splash. And speaking of reading swells, our Discord crew love dissecting on-chain charts. Last week, someone noticed dormant XRP wallets stirring after years of silence. Could be nothing, could be whales repositioning before a news drop. Now, you don't know, or at least you don't have to, I guess, marry any of this intel. But having 5,000 extra eyeballs scanning block explorers kind of beats lone wolfing it. Okay, let's hit the climax of this yarn, right? Chad's tweet is not prophecy, right? It's just a simple challenge. Now, if you missed Bitcoin's ugly duckling days, do you have the courage to investigate XRP's awkward teenage phase? Now note, investigate, not blindly ape in. Skeptics say that XRP's kind of ship sailed in 2017. Believers say that the engines are merely warming up. Both can be half right, of course, depending on the time frame. And that's the puzzle, and puzzles sometimes pay. So when I look back at my $3,000 Bitcoin buy, the money is great, but the real prize was the kind of mental rewiring. It taught me that the revolutionary tech rarely kind of announces itself with confetti cannons. It whispers through fatigue, doubt, and drunk memes. One day it just kind of flips the crowd's points and says, obvious in hindsight, right? And that kind of phrase kind of haunts me. Right? I would rather wrestle with uncertainty than live with hindsight regret. So, what's next? Maybe XRP, Miranda's another year. Maybe it erupts next week. Maybe it nosedives and never recovers, right? Your decision matrix should factor each outcome. Mine says allocate a slice, keep reading, mute hysterics, and refresh conviction only when new facts arrive. It's simple, but it's not easy. All right. So my coffee is evaporating and so is your attention span here. So let's kind of tie things up in a big bow, right? Dismissing XRP today might age like mocking Bitcoin at $3,000, or it might validate skeptics. But turning curiosity into knowledge beats scrolling doom threads any day. So go sniff the data, debate in our free Discord pit, and if you trade, check out the Kraken Pro through the affiliate link down below. It keeps the lights on and the latte hot. And of course, if this conversation slapped even one neuron awake, smash that subscribe button so you don't miss the next deep dive as we chase down tomorrow's rumors before they grow any teeth.